What's going on, Chazz?
How you doing today? I'm feeling good. How about yourself?
Oh, I'm doing well. I'm just getting ready for this serious discussion we're going to have today. I see it on the crawl saying how to grow your mind. I guess I don't want to waste any time, but I must say this broadcast can be seen every Wednesday at 6 o'clock Central Standard Time. And we also deal with subjects that are serious minded. And today I'm going to slow it down. Normally I get excited, but I'm going to do the best I can to slow it down because this is a serious subject matter, Chaz, because many of our people are gone and they don't
Yes.
realize it yet. They really don't realize that they're struggling and that the mind has been so, I guess, tampered with
Right.
that the ability to think and reason and all of that, it's really, really hard for them to do so. Wouldn't you agree to that?
Yes, and there's other factors that play a part of this as well. Now, I'm not going to blame it all on these factors. I'm going to say, but there's certain things like the food that we eat that's messed up, that they're putting chemicals in the food,
Mhm.
radiation. So there's a lot of also other factors that we can try to fight to negate some of that as well. But yeah, our minds are messed up, brother. It's really really at a bad spot. I think now more than ever.
And this is why we need a broadcast like this to talk about how we need to grow our minds. Isn't it interesting how we grow crops? We grow up as individuals from children or babies to adolescents to adults. We grow, a lot of things grow, but yet with our mind, it seems like when the older we get, we take steps backwards. And I
Yes.
think we need to slow it down today. And if this is a 2 week subject, that's fine. But I really want to take my time and be deliberate tonight
Okay.
because the mind is really, really struggling in the African American community.
Okay. We got a comment in. Says Miss Shonda put some hands on there clapping. Okay, we appreciate that. Sister Marie says hotel. We appreciate her for logging on.
Yeah, so Chaz, let's start off by defining what we say when we talk about the mind in simple terms. Now, we know the mind is more than what we're going to say, but if we can simplify it just for tonight's subject, what would we say?
The mind is where your thinking is. It's where decisions are made.
And Chaz, that's important because we think as individuals, we make decisions every day, but a lot of our decisions are clouded, and
Right.
a lot of our thoughts are so misconstrued that as old as we are, a lot of us are having difficulties learning how to grow the mind. And this is why we're saying how to grow your mind, because the mind is really suffering today, especially in the African American community. So
Mm.
yeah, it's struggling, it's suffering. And here I want to say this right off the bat. Here's one of the reasons that the mind is struggling and the mind is suffering. This thing right here, Chaz. This thing right here.
Man. Man.
And we know we're going to talk about that later on, but Chaz, I believe that we are living in a generation who has allowed a technical device such as this
Yes.
to be used to our detriment.
Mm-hmm.
And now it has affected us to the degree that a lot of us are really psychopathic. We're deranged, but
Mm-hmm.
we don't see that. And so this has become a normal part of our everyday world. And it's like it has destroyed us, Chaz, many of us.
Yes.
And we
Yes.
need to be honest tonight about
Yes.
what this has done to us.
Yes, we got another comment. Sister Barbara says, "Good evening, Kings." We appreciate her, but I want to touch real quick on what you just held up with that phone. It's to a point now, brother, that like you mentioned, we did a podcast on this before, but I'll just touch it up real quick. We can't do anything without it. We go to the bathroom with it. We wake up, we own it. We're broadcasting our lives every 5 seconds. Oh, I just went to Golden Corral. Oh, I just came from Ingham Park Mall. Oh, I just got done going to his funeral. It's like we don't know when to shut it off and say, some of these things in my life do not need to be broadcasted. But brother, like you said, with the phone, it is taken over this our generation.
Yeah, it has. And the thing that I wanted to highlight on that is this. I believe that as a society, we are going down as opposed to heading upward. We're going down, and that's because a lot of us, we don't even recognize that this problem exists
Mm-hmm.
because the mind is still at a childish state. We can't have serious conversations. We have to jump on a technical device. We have to jump on some type of device to look at it and to read it and to muse it and to look for it. And it has affected us to where it's hard for the mind to grow because we won't allow it to grow, Chaz. And this is a serious discussion that we should be having because a lot of us don't want to talk about this. But Chaz, I really believe that there's some people that are really sick and they're in our family too.
We got another comment, a Nucci comment. She says, peace and blessings, fam. We appreciate her for logging in as well.
Okay, Chaz, without any further delay, let's look at some things that we can say that's practical to help people realize these are ways to grow the mind. Take it away.
Number one, feed it. Put something in it that will nourish your mentality, something that will broaden your perspective. Now, I'm looking down here. As far as, and I think you kind of touched on this, but something like as far as a crossword puzzle, these are things that help improve our memory. It helps us do multiple things at one time. Playing chess, which also helps mentally keep you sharp and alert. These are things that help the mind instead of, watching the television or looking outside of a window all day. But yes, we do need to do some of these things as puzzles, playing chess, things like that, because they help expand the mind.
I'm going to make an analogy now, Chaz, and I hope you just stay with me because I'm not going to be long-winded, but I want to make an analogy when it comes to nourishing. Now, we all like to talk about how we should eat the right foods to nourish our body because we need nourishment. We talk about how our children should be nourished. But if you look at our minds and you're honest about it, and I'm honest about it, our minds haven't been nourished in so long. It's like a yard that needs cut, but yet the weeds have grown so tall that it's so many stickers, it's so many bushes, it's so many leaves, it's so much dirt, it's so much caught in our minds. And we don't see that this is a problem because most of us should be talking about how we should be growing our minds as opposed to how we have malnourished our mind, which affects our mentality. And that's why we can't communicate. That's why there's always issues. That's why you can't say one thing and I say another thing because we can't even talk because our minds have been so tampered with and we have not nourished our mentality and we don't broaden our perspective. We shrink our perspective. We make it smaller and smaller and we're too old for this, Chaz. We're just too old for this.
Absolutely. Number two, allow positive thoughts to live in it. Get that mess out that retards your growth. I would say, allow positive thoughts because a lot of us, we have this information in our minds. Woe is me. The world is out to get me. Nobody likes me. I'll never ever get this. I'll never ever get that. But we do need to play the other side of it, which is allowing positive thoughts, saying, whatever I'm going through at this moment, it may be tough. Eventually, I may get through it. It's not always so much doom and gloom. And I think the more we look at it, if we start looking at things from a positive perspective, and not everything is just all peaches and cream, but the point is, stop being so negative about life. Stop looking down upon life. It's a beautiful thing if you cherish it, but quit being so negative.
See, the environment, politics, religion, spirituality, our families, everything we've involved ourselves in over the years, a lot of it has made us negative. And so therefore, it's difficult to allow these positive thoughts to live in our minds because everything we see, all you have to do is talk to someone and you'll find out that it's hard for us to say positive things about other people. So how can positive thoughts live in our minds and live in our hearts, although we know they can, but it's a choice that we have to make. And this is why people don't want to watch these types of broadcasts because we get challenged in a loving way, but we don't want to work on our minds. We want to be the same old people that we were when we were teenagers. And this is why a lot of us don't grow. We don't, and we'll talk about some of this later on, like you mentioned earlier. We don't even pick up a book. We don't look at things that are educational. We don't look at things that's going to help the mind. We're not interested in that, Chaz. And here's another thing, and I'll give it back to you. See, we don't know how to use what is called sequential thinking. See, our minds are so messed up. We can't put things in order. We can't put things, on a plane. We don't use inductive reasoning. We don't use deductive reasoning. We don't know how to draw conclusions. Many of us don't know how to use what is called linear thinking. We don't know how to use abstract thinking. All this has to do with the mind, Chaz. And this is why it's very difficult for us to have this discussion, because the mind is not something that we are interested in growing our mind. We're more interested in men. We're interested in women. Yeah, we're interested in trying to find Mr. Right. We're trying to find Mrs. Right. We're trying to get our hands on some dollars because it's just tough right now. You know, we're snooping like hound dogs, snooping everywhere we can, but we're not looking at the thing that's suffering most. And Chazz, that is the mind in many of our lives.
Yeah, and some of us, this is not to make fun, because I know as we get older, we sometimes forget things. But too, brother, I would say that we do need to start taking supplements for our memory, because some of us, we have a hard time, and this could be for teenagers, young men, young women, all of us. We have a problem with memory where we forgetful. We're always losing things, we're always dropping things. So I will put, because this ties into the mind as well. If you do see you have that issue in that area, start looking at some kind of supplements, because you don't want to, and I hate to say this, you don't want to always be in a situation where you always backtracking and you can't remember where you're putting stuff. So I would suggest that people take supplements if you have issues with your memory.
And everybody wants to change the world, and that's a good thing. Ideally, everyone wants to change the world, but you cannot change the world unless you change your mind. And see, that's where it starts. But unfortunately, this subject is one that is really, it has escaped us. It has escaped us.
Sister Barbara comments, she says, tell it like it is. She also comments on here, vitamin D3. Okay.
Yeah, Chazz, you know, another thing I want to say about the mind is there's been so many things that have happened to us as individuals. And seriously, we all go through things, and it's called life.
Right.
But because we haven't processed those things, we have allowed those things to affect our minds to such a degree that we're antisocial. We want to be alone. We don't want to be bothered. We want to sleep all time, all day and all night. You know, we don't want to have fruitful discussions. You know, we don't want to do any of these things. And so this is the problem that we're having. And this is why we don't do this next thing right here that I want you to read.
Number 3, stay curious and ask questions. Don't allow any old thing that is said to lay its roots in your mind. I'll let you take this one.
Yeah, because here's the thing that I don't get. We don't ask these kind of interrogatives. Why? Why? What? Who? How? When? Where? Now, when it's mess, Chazz, we ask those questions. Who did it? Who slept with somebody's so significant other? Why did he leave her? Why did she do this? You know, why is she smoking dope? Why is he drinking so much? What, you know, we're messy with those interrogatives. But when it comes to staying curious, asking simple questions that's going to elevate the mind, we don't do that, because we're doing the second part. And this is where it says, don't allow any old thing that is said to lay in roots in our mind. We listen to anything that people tell us. And this is why our minds are like that. We get on social media and somebody said they saw a cow jumping over the moon. And we will believe that because somebody said it, our favorite entertainer, our sports figure. And so what I'm trying to get at on this point is this. We have to be curious, Chazz, but it has to be in a learning or pedagogical way. And this is why a lot of us aren't having these kinds of discussions, because we are not interested in being curious about that which is going to make us grow.
And I just want to touch real quick on this last slide that we just had. And it is important, like you said, when we asking these questions, because I'm telling you, if we just be yes men and yes women, we agree with everything, you're going to get taken advantage of. And this is how a lot of us are getting taken advantage of, because all it takes is a fancy man or a fancy woman with a lot of money, with a good suit, nice haircut, nice hair, and they can present themselves as these big figures, and they are getting over on us hook, line, and sinker, but we can't see it because we're blinded and we see them as these big superstars, and they are taking advantage of us. But I just had to throw that in there before you moved on.
Yeah, Chazz, I want you to read that because I want to say something about this here.
Number 4, engage in critical thinking. Do puzzles, word searches, play chess, and activities that require logical reason. Now, I'll touch this up because I said it earlier. As far as crossword puzzles, they help improve your memory. It also helps keep one's ability to keep multiple things going at the same time. Playing chess helps improve cognitive function. helping you to become mentally sharp and alert. These are things that help the mind. And I told, and this is no secret, I have a lot of crossword puzzle books around my little place or what have you, and I'm constantly doing it. And I could now it's not what you call a magical thing overnight, but you can tell the difference when you're constantly doing them. You're constantly sharp, you're constantly alert, and they're cheap. You can get them at the dollar store for about $1, dollar and some change. I mean, come on now, don't you want to do something that's going to sharpen your mind?
And you can use this thing here. They have puzzles on here that you can use, word searches. But see, we don't want to look at those. We want to see who said what did our favorite entertainer say, who's sleeping with who's got the latest song out, and so who's doing the silly dances, who's using vulgarity. So these are the kinds of things that we have stooped to. But engage in critical thinking. Critical thinking, and see, this broadcast is a beautiful one today, because it seems like we're both down. We're not taking off like we have in the past. We're down and we're on the runway, and we're basically just talking about how the mind needs to grow. Engage in critical thinking. We have to think through things, Chazz. We can't always respond because of our emotions. We have to think. We have to ask questions. We have to do things that's going to help us in the area of growing the mind. But a lot of us, we don't do critical thinking because we're too busy putting people down all the time, always talking negative about people, always talking about how people aren't doing things, as opposed to critically thinking and analyzing and use reasoning skills. And these are the reasons that a lot of us don't use logical thinking. As again, I keep saying this, as old as we are, we don't even know how to use what is called logical reasoning.
Number 5. Learn how to solve problems. This will expand one's minds rapidly.
Yes.
And I just put on my little notes here. It teaches you how to sit back, use common sense, look at a situation. Don't just shoot off at the mouth. Don't just go off the first thing that comes off at the mind. Sit back and say, how can I make this problem go away? Even if I can't do it tonight, maybe it may take a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month. But the point is, learn to do these things because it will help improve your mind. And on top of that, it also teaches you how to have patience, because we are, as a people, brother, we are so we always flying off at the handle. We don't really want to sit still. You gotta have patience to solve problems. For example, children. They get on our nerves at times. I know that they do, but the point is, you have to have patience dealing with them, because in life, everything is not going to come as they will call, like in a microwave. You have to have patience.
And this is how you grow your mind. Everything you just said is spot on, because that's how the mind grows, because we get a chance to solve problems. The mind was made for solving problems. It's not made for mimicking. You know, that's why in school you have to look at the type of systematic approach people use to teaching, because most of the times they want you to repeat what the teacher says. And so therefore you become a clone, or you become that type of person. But when you get them to solve problems, they're going to do well, because the world they live in is about problem solving. And even us as adults, many of us, when we see problems, we don't see that as an opportunity to grow our mind. We avoid the problem. We want to sidestep the problem. We want to go around the problem because we say, I don't want to deal with that. Don't bother me. And this shows a man or a woman who is deranged and don't realize it, because the mind is supposed to solve problems. This is what we are created for. We are put on this earth to solve problems, because that's what the human makeup is. But again, unfortunately, a lot of us, we sidestep the problems. We don't want the smoke. We don't want all of this stuff that we're talking about. And that's why we're in the situation that we're in.
Number 6, engage in meaningful conversations. I just got on here. These type of conversations can help you articulate and help purify your thoughts. And then also, they can also help as far as just striking up a meaningless conversation with your stranger or somebody you're walking down the street and you see them. Brother, we are so attached to our cell phones. Just saying, hello, sir, how you doing? What are you doing today? And then you don't have to be out there for 3 or 4 hours. Just something light. And you notice sometimes that people on the street, they're happy because they're looking for someone just to communicate with for a few minutes. And it's something that'll benefit them for the most, more than yourself.
This is true. And those of us who know each other, the way to grow the mind, and these are practical truths that Chazz and I are talking about. But the way to grow the mind is to engage in meaningful conversations. I want to take that word meaningful conversations and talk a little bit more about what I mean when we say that. A meaningful conversation is not about the stuff in the streets. A meaningful conversation is not about all the time how your family are treating you or your family is treating me. A meaningful conversation is about when I talk to you, I might say to you, for example, how are you doing, Chazz? And you say, I'm doing well. What are you working on in your life that's going to make you a better person? See, that's meaningful. Now, you can't shuck, you can't jive, you can't run and hide. You've got to tell me either you're working on something or you're not. And most of the times, people don't answer that question because they're not working on anything. They're too busy starting trouble and being messy. But when you ask me, what are you working on in your life? I should be able to say, I'm working on learning how to be more prompt. You see, I'm working on how to speak to people when I'm angry. I'm working on all these things that I should be saying, but unfortunately, we'll say, well, how you doing? We always say what? I'm doing fine.
I'm good.
I'm good. I'm good. But we're really not good. And so this is what makes me want to cry is that we have so many adults. And I'm not really talking about the children. That's why I keep stressing the adults, because the children, they're learning, although we do want to talk with them as well about this, because they need to learn how to grow their mind. But the adults, Chazz, and I'm not belittling anybody because I'm putting myself in this.
Okay.
It's almost like we're little children, man. And I don't mean that to say that I'm better than anyone, because I'm like a little child myself, because I can get in my little moods and act like a little baby too. But as an adult, we shouldn't be acting like spoiled brats because we don't know how to communicate. Mm-hmm. Boyfriends, girlfriends, husbands, wives, mothers, daughters, fathers, sons, sisters, brothers, friends. We don't have the ability to sit down. I bet you if you ask most people, when is the last time you had a meaningful discussion? They're going to say something about Bad Boys, which is Martin Lawrence and Will Smith. They're going to say something about a church. They're going to say something about a God. They're going to say something about a Nichiru. They're going to say something about Allah. They see those are meaningful conversations, but they're not going to go deep into that to say all these things have helped me become this person. This is why I believe that the mind needs watering. The mind needs sunlight. In other words, I'm figuratively speaking of something that needs to bring us up because we're down.
Right. Absolutely, brother. Oh, no. A person whose mind is growing is social. They interact with others. Yeah. Like I said, you don't have everybody that you see. You don't have to go up to every single person, but just pick a few people in your day-to-day life, at work, while you're walking to your car. Just strike up a conversation, interact with others. And like you said, not always about the foolishness. Just ask them, about some of the things that's going on in this environment, some of these fires, not worldly as far as like hip hop, but I'm saying worldly as far as things that are affecting our everyday lives. And interact with people. This is something that we have to get back to. But like you said earlier in this broadcast, a lot of us, our faces are too much in our phones. It's like we don't want to miss anything on these devices. And this is why you're not seeing that many interactions except for at work, because you have to.
Yeah, I remember this statement as I was growing up, and it's two of them. And one of them is this: the mind is like a computer. If you put nonsense in it, you're going to get nonsense out of it. That's a good one. And then the United Negro College Fund had one that says, the mind is a terrible thing to waste. See, these are puns. These are sayings, but it's so much truth to them. It really is, because we should be constantly feeding our minds. But nowadays, African Americans, we're not interested, a lot of us, in feeding the mind because we don't want to be social. Other than going on social media, we don't know how to interact with others, because if you say something that I don't like, I'm going to curse you out, or I'm not going to come around you anymore. And so we hide behind these walls that we have put up, and these walls we have put up are the very walls that are destroying us. Because if your mind is to grow, if my mind is to grow, we've got to stop locking ourselves up in these closets figuratively, these houses figuratively, these caves figuratively, and just rotting, man, because that's not what life is all about, and that's not how we should be.
I would also say real quick, if I can, on the last part where it says learn how to interact with others. I think this is crucial. What I'm getting ready to say.
Okay.
Just because I have a disagreement with you, and I'm not talking about like me shouting in your face, screaming and hollering. I'm just saying me and you may have a debate, and I may not agree with you, but our debate should not cause me and you to fall out. So, where, for example, I don't agree with something that you said to me, and you were nice, you were kind about it, but I won't speak to you for 30, 40 years. I won't text you again for 30 or 40 years. And in fact, if I see you text me, I'm going to ignore it and not text you back. And it's just some people in this society, brother, they do not, if you don't agree with them, it's like the world has come to an end. Don't talk to me. Don't communicate. I'm done with it. And to me, brother, that has to stop.
It has to stop, and it's also very childish. That's very childish. But unfortunately, you're talking about me, you're talking about us, you're talking about people who are that way because we don't realize that in order for us to grow, and this is why I'm learning this now. And if you could ask me, what are you learning? I can tell you now, I'm learning that in arguing or debating, I'm learning how to win. In other words, if you and I are debating and I'm on one side, you're on the other side, I'm really not looking to get my point across. I'm trying to see if what you say can convince me with information and data. So now that we both can win and I can walk away saying, thank you, Chazz, that was a beautiful debate. You have taught me something, as opposed to me walking away thinking that I have lost, because this is the mindset that most of us have. And this is why you cannot seem to find a person that you can really have this dialogue with, because they don't realize it's always, I got you, I won, I'm the one. And so this is how we grow our minds. We stay informed. In other words, what, and these are the questions that I need to ask. Stay informed. What kind of information are you allowing in your mind? Who are you allowing to influence your mind? Why did you allow these things to get in your heart? What is it that you're talking about that you have been informed with that's teaching you how to be a better person? When did you start getting informed? What is the necessity for getting informed? See, I'm beginning to ask myself all these questions because these questions are going to help me solve my problem, and they're going to also help me because it's not just always the what, it's the when, it's the why. We must stay informed, keep up with the current events that affect us as a people. Like you mentioned, all these chemicals they're putting in our foods and our drinks. Okay, that's a current event. How they're treating us, we're unemployed, that's a current event. How we're treating one another, those are current events. But we want to go back to what the OJs, the Isley brothers, the Temptations, we want to go back and live in a fantasy world, and because that has its time and place. But we need to stay informed, Chad. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and here's something now. This may not be popular, but I just had to put this crowd on blast to give them a little bit of credit, okay? Not everything that they say is right, but some of what they say, they're spot on. The conspiracy crowd, not everything that they say, because some of it is far-fetched, I will agree. But most of it, these people who sit back and say, I'm going to research in some of these things that went on in this earth. I don't believe everything that I see. And these people do get a bad rap on the news, on YouTube, all these social media avenues that say that they're loony, they're silly. All they do is look up stuff. But brother, some of these brothers and sisters who are into these conspiracies are sharp, and they're spot on a lot of this stuff. And I think that word conspiracy, if I'm not mistaken, was made up by the government to get people to to throw them off, so people will look at them as Looney Tunes or nuts. But I just had to highlight those brothers and sisters. Like I said, not everything that they say is always right, but most of it, they're sitting back and saying, I'm going to take control of this. I want to look into this topic, and I want to make sure that they're not screwing me over.
Chaz, let me say something that is very, very heart-wrenching right now. You're right. And the reason that is happening is because we don't want to be informed. Listen, many of us don't want to be informed. We don't want to know anything new. We don't want to learn anything. This is why, if you notice in most of our lives, we do the same thing every day. It's the same old song and dance.
Right.
We don't want to be informed. And if you tell me something new, instead of me saying, wow, Chazz, you just gave me all this good data, I researched it, and man, that has helped me out a lot. Instead of me being excited about it, I'm going to turn you off and say, Ian, you can't tell me anything. I'm going to turn my back, because we are in an age now where we don't like information. We don't
Yeah.
want to be informed unless it's mess. If it's a TV, if it's a choir singing, if it's a person playing a guitar, if it's somebody talking about the solar system and how old the earth is, which no one knows, if it's somebody we're following saying something that we think is profound and it's really not. So we don't want to be, we don't even challenge them. Most of the time, when we talk about growing our mind, someone can tell us something that we know is wrong, but because we love them, we're going to say that it's right. We will not challenge them because that's the problem that we seem to be struggling with as people.
Absolutely, brother. Number 8, teach others. This is mental gymnastics.
Chazz, please let me say something. Chazz, please let me say this, and I'm gonna give it back to you because I gotta say this before I forget it. Because when you get older, D3 5000 doesn't always kick in, but I gotta say this now. Check this out, Chazz. This part here, the reason that many of our minds have not grown is because here it is. You may say, I can't believe this, but watch this. Many of us don't know how to teach. Many of us don't know how to. Okay, many of us don't know how to teach. We can't take a subject and define it, illustrate it, apply it, and give it to a person. We can't do that. And so what we do is we curse people out or we get loud because if you, just like you just asked me, you asked me how. That's a beautiful interrogative. And instead of me getting angry, like most people would have said, what you mean how? Ian, don't worry about how. See, because they don't know how to teach, you see. And most of your family, most of my family, most of our family, most of our friends, most of our loved ones, they don't know how to teach, Chazz. And if you don't believe me, think about when someone has actually sat you down as a friend and you asked a question about the solar system or life, and they actually taught you the way you said, that was a beautiful lecture in 2 minutes. They're all over the place because they don't know how to teach. And so when you teach, this is mental gymnastics. This is pumping iron in the gym mentally. This is running around the track mentally. This is doing curls mentally. See, this is doing push-ups and sit-ups. But a lot of us don't know how to teach. We always say in church, teach. That's not teaching, man. That's not teaching. A lot of that is just loud, verbose. That's just, those are words, man. And so we don't know how to teach. And so from now on, you ask somebody when they say something about, Chazz, did you know that this and that, or that the other happened? All you have to do is say, teach me that. And you're going to find out they just repeating what someone else has told them. And that's the problem right there.
Or I was just going to say real quick, before our Sister Sharon Anderson comment says, greetings all. We appreciate her for logging in. I was just going to say real quick about this, about teaching others, brother. And this is just real simple. A lot of us don't have the time or the patience to want to teach others. I really believe that. We're so busy through working, trying to get home and cook, trying to get the kids ready for school, or trying to get the kids ready for a day tomorrow, what have you. We don't have the patience. And say, for example, we may explain something to that individual once and we see that they're not getting it. We get angry. And then for 5 minutes, we're leaving. Brother, I really believe we don't have the patience as a society to really want to sit down and teach others because, number one, our attention spans are really, really thin. And for number two, we don't really care to do it.
See, that was a beautiful lecture you just gave me in 2 minutes. That's a lecture. That's teaching. But people can't, as I keep saying, that was sequential. And I know I'm using words tonight, but these words go along with how to grow your mind. What you just said, that's helping me because that was sequential thinking and it was logical. It was inductive reasoning. It was deductive reasoning. It was abstract. It was linear thinking. And see, these are the concepts that a lot of us could care less about, but it affects them. This is why the United States of America is running all kinds of games on us because we don't see the importance. We don't even want to have classes on thinking. We don't want to have class on reasoning. We don't want to have class on logic, but we sure want to have classes on cooking. We sure want to have classes on eating. We sure want to have classes on drinking. We sure want to have classes on other things. And so this is what we're trying to say. All of us, you, me, we all need to grow our minds. I feel sorry for many of our children and our grandchildren because we don't teach them. We think teaching them is fussing at them, cursing them out. No, we say, no, do not touch that hot stove because you will get burned. Instead of get your MF in. This is the kind of stuff we're into, man.
Right. Number 9, regularly challenge yourself to learn daily. And these are tips you can go on Google. And it's not always that has to do with, like you said, cooking or things like that. It can be something as simple as I'm trying to think of something here, how to challenge yourself. Forgive me, my mind just went blank. I'm like you. I guess I need some of that D3 as well.
Well, I mean, what you right, Chaz. You know, you can challenge yourself to even something as simple as what I do sometimes. I learn certain words, and I try to use those words in context, and so it helps me. It helps my vocabulary. But sometimes, you know, I slip, and I have to challenge myself. Have you studied your words this week? And if the answer is no, I don't beat myself up. I don't go get drunk because I messed up. What I do is I go back and I say, yep, I talk to myself a lot. And I also challenge myself. In other words, I have to learn daily. What is it that I need to know on a daily basis how to survive in a racist society, in a system that is just topsy-turvy? What do I need to do daily? And all of us have things we should do. So we should challenge ourselves. We should stop doing certain things. We should start doing certain things. And this is why this discussion has to be had.
Number 10, stay socially, stay socially active in your community. And that, you don't always have to get those t-shirts and be a volunteer. Staying active in your community can be just being around your next door neighbors, seeing what's going on with them, seeing what's going wrong with their vehicles, things like that. Or if you want to join a volunteer group, I'm not against that. That's another good thing too. If you're a volunteer and you do want to, see what's going on in the community, ways how to help feed the homeless, help feed people who are needy. These are all good things. And the thing that I'll say real quick about the volunteers who do these things, brother, they don't get paid for that. And that's a good person, because I'm telling you now, if you tell a person to do something and they're not getting any money, any liquor, anything for it, they're not going to do it. So I would say, yes, stay socially active. See what the community needs that you live in. What do they need? What are they lacking? And if you have the funds to, put your points together and see if you can do it.
Well, this is some beautiful thinking, Chaz, and this is basic, but it's true, and you're right. And a lot of us don't want to be bothered because we're selfish, man. We're selfish. We go to work, those who have jobs, or we stay bottled up in our apartments or our homes, and we don't come out until an event happens. Then we go back into the cocoon. We come out of the cocoon. We go back into the cocoon, and that's why we're not active socially. And this is the problem that most of us have.
Sister Jocelyn comment. She says, "Hey y'all, from me and the girls." Hey Jocelyn.
Yeah, and this broadcast today is talking about how to grow your mind. We have to do this too, Chaz, in growing our minds.
Number 11, focus on concentrating on a specific task or goal. And that task or goal can be frustrating. It will be tough, but I would say if you do fail with the first couple weeks, don't be so easy to throw in the towel. Don't be so easy just to give up. Keep fighting it. Keep going through it, even if it is tough. Because I know that's especially for us blacks, brother. When something doesn't go right, we are so quick to throw in the doggone towel. And I think we have to start being more serious about whatever that task is. And I will say this real quick too, and I'll pass it back. On that task, be realistic. Don't do something like you think, well, for example, I want to be a millionaire in 2 weeks. You know that's impossible. So set something that's like realistic is basically what I'm getting.
This is true. And I want to look at these first 3 words. Focus on concentration. You see, many of us don't know what concentration is. Many of us don't realize that when we put our focus on something, we must concentrate on it. That means we must investigate that thing. And I'll use this pen as an example. Now, if you tell me, Jahi, you need to focus and concentrate on that pen, that means I'm going to look at this baby. I'm going to see how it's built. I'm going to look at some things on it that's different. I'm going to notice some things about it. I'm not going to be when you say, Jahi, focus on this pen, I'm looking on everywhere else. I'm doing everything else under the sun. I'm doing everything under the sun. And I'm not thinking about this pen. And here's the mind. And I'm a spiritualist. And when I say I'm a spiritualist, I basically believe in principles, the principles of the universe. And the problem that many of us have into spirituality, religion, I applaud a person if they go to church, whether I believe it or not. Those principles, again, if you are a Muslim if you are a Buddhist, whatever you are, those principles we should be focusing and concentrating on. But like this pen, we say one thing, but when we get to this religion, spirituality, Buddhism, Islam, whatever we get to, instead of concentrating on this to help us, we're doing this. And then, but you ask me, you say, hey, Jahi, what are you doing? Oh, I'm into this. I'm into this. I almost said something. We are not a bit more into that. And this is why the psyche is problematic. And this is why we're having these problems, man.
Exactly. Number 12, challenge your memory. Practice remembering important things. Now,
Important
us men, yeah, I was going to say that us men, we that are into the sports world, we can remember a lot of stats. We can remember a lot of the athletes, but start remembering things as far as certain, let me see here. I'm sorry. I'm all over the place. But start remembering important things, certain dates. For example, and I hate saying this, but I have to say it. For a loved one that you have lost, let's say, for example, last year in January 5th, remember that date to where you know what you were doing at that moment when you got that terrible phone call. You knew what you were doing as you got home from work when you got that phone call. Things like that, remembering also helps keep you alert as well.
This is true, Chazz. We need to challenge our own memory. See, it's easy for me to challenge you. I can tell you in a second, you remember this, you ought to do this. But see, I don't do myself that way. So these things are what is called introspective. Most of the time, we are always looking for something outside of us to help us. I've often said this, and I'll say it till the day that I leave this earth, unless I am shown otherwise with data and it makes sense and it's substantial. We have what we need inside of us, Chazz. I don't care what you believe. I don't care what I believe. We have what we need inside of us. But a lot of us don't want that. We want to go outside of ourselves to do things that's not going to challenge us. And our memory is inside of us, you see. This is something that is inside of us. But unfortunately, they're not listening to you and I because you're just Chazz, I'm just Jahi. They rather go to a man with a clergy collar on. They rather go to a man with a dashiki on. They rather go to a man with a robe on. They rather go to a man that has a crescent, a crescent moon. They rather go to a person that has a big cross. And what it is doing is it's destroying our little ones. And these are the discussions that we need to have. Why? Because our minds as adults are still childish. And I'm talking about all of us. And this is why this kind of discussion doesn't go over big. This is a beautiful discussion. One of the sisters just said something. In fact, she said something that I thought was it was crucial. And I wanted to try to bring it up. It was one of the comments that she said. It was the last one. She says this. She says, excellent teaching. See, you have to know what's excellent. See, but if I was on this broadcast cursing and you were on here, showing your backside with your show, if we were on here doing all this stuff, everybody would tune in and say, boy, they got a bad show. Boy, you should have seen Jahi cuss that MFR out. Or Chazz was half naked and all, See, this is what we have accustomed ourselves to. And this is why the mind will not grow, because we don't want to take time out to sit down, turn the TV off, cut the cell phone off, and listen to some common sense things that's going to help us.
Number 13, avoid being a busybody. This stifles your mental growth. Exactly. When you're constantly doing all this stuff, going to work or going to college, picking up a second or third job, and you're doing all this stuff, your body is so worn down to where you can't really grow mentally. You're too tired. You're too sleepy. You don't want to do anything but pass out. And then start to learn how to take a chill pill as well, as far as you don't always have to be on the go. Like today, something happened, and you told me at a perfect time, you said, you know what? Maybe you shouldn't do this today. And it was a good thought. Now, I ended up doing it anyway. But the point is, the logic was what I'm getting at. But yeah, avoid being a busybody.
Yeah, because I always have one question for myself, and I'm very, very busy, but I have to ask myself one question. Did you make time for yourself today? See, these are the questions that people don't want to hear. And the answer is no. When is the last time that we have made time for ourselves? And I'm not talking about sitting down, eating popcorn or drinking or smoking or having fun. When is the last time we sat down and we reflected on who we are? See, these are practical truths that you can't get at church. You can't get this at the spiritual meeting. You can't get this at these Muslim temples, some of them. See, when have we sat down and dealt with ourselves, man? We don't do that. So we're too busy, because here's the deal. We have so low self-esteem, many of us, that we have to be doing something to take away from the fact that we are who we are. And we don't want to deal with us and our insecurities, so we have to keep doing things or wanting people to think that we're all that, when our mental growth, as this point says, has been stifled.
No, a person whose mind is growing takes care of themselves. I'll let you get this one.
We talked about this last week and the week before, and we always come back to it. In order for our minds to grow, because a lot of our minds haven't grown, and we don't even look at that bottom crawl, we don't even challenge ourselves, is my mind growing? A person whose mind is growing takes care of themselves. If I'm eating everything in the sun or under the sun, Chazz, if I'm eating red meat constantly, if I'm pouring salt on everything I get, if I'm drinking all this sugary drink, if I'm not exercising, if all this grease, I can't be growing. Why? Because my mind is not looking out for my body, you see. And instead of us looking at it that way, we don't realize that you have to take care of yourself. That's a part of the mental growth. A person who's mental takes care of themselves, their mind, their body, and their spirit.
Absolutely. I was going to say that. And it's not only in one category, because I think we have a bad habit of just focusing on one thing. For example, we may want to just tackle the finances, where I want to get more money, which is fine. You do want to get more cash to, be good in this society. But you also, like you said, you want to look at other things. Like you said, your spiritual, you want to look at your financial, being a better parent, being a better brother. Try to tackle, and once again, you can't tackle it all at once. But try to work on at least more than one thing at a time to become a better person. Exercise, especially. I always hit that point home. Number 14, stay away from non-productive social media sites. This comes us down. Now, brother,
I know you want that.
What I'm about to say.
Okay.
I hate what I'm about to say, brother. I don't think you should have put that comment on there, brother, because I believe as a society, we are so far gone, brother. We can't. We can't stay off of social media.
That's heavy.
We can't stay off social media, and we've done a broadcast on this before. This is really the number one thing that I think most of us look forward to, and it's nothing wrong with checking it here and there. But brother, we love social media, and I don't think that we can get away from it.
Well, Chazz, if we look at this number 14, let's look at it and dissect. See, here we go with this linear thinking now. It says stay away from non-productive social media sites. Like this site. This is a social media site. This is a beautiful site. You should want to watch this. You should tune in every Wednesday, because you know you're going to be taught. We're saying stay away from non-productive social media sites, because why? This dumbs us down. So if a person is addicted to their phone, I would suggest and recommend that we go to sites that are productive as opposed to non-productive. All that fighting, all that vulgarity, all that nonsense, all that bluster, all that silliness, all that foolishness, all that frivolity, those things are not productive. And this is why we like to run to these buildings every week and call ourselves religious, is because there's something inside of us that's missing. And we don't know how to turn up the heat in our own life to make us better people. So we all run to these places, and instead of using the principles, we go for the wrong reasons. We go because there's people there, or we miss these places. And this shows a mind. You said this months ago, and I got to bring it back. We were talking about a subject, and you said that sometimes when people stop doing something, after a while, they go back to it with a vengeance instead of, a lot of us will do that. We stay away from stuff. We stay away from these things. And then we get the itch. We get the urge. We want to go back. We want to go back. And we go back to these things. And we're worse off now, because now it's like we're going back into the garbage can to try to find something that's clean. And we know it's nothing but garbage there. This is a sick, a deranged, a person who needs psychiatric help. And this is where many of us are. because we really can't get away from it.
Yeah, brother, and it's hard though, like you mentioned, and I forgot that I did tell you that. But here's the thing: when we relapse, because that's what we'll call it, no matter what it is and whatever addiction, it's hard, brother, because it all that time that, like I said before, all that time we missed from that addiction, we're making up for it, and we're so bad off this time. And each time when you relapse, it gets worse, it gets worse, and it gets worse. And I hate to say it, and this is going to hurt a lot of people. Sometimes, brother, we don't come out. We die in that state. We die immediately in that state. And I hate to say it, but I had to say that.
Yeah, that's heavy. But you know, and I'm saying this too. Some of us are so weak, and I don't mean this to belittle anybody, because I'm weak in areas as well. But some of us are so weak, we think that running back to the vomit is good because our mind has psyched us out. And so we really need some psychiatric help, as I said earlier. But in our minds, we say, I got to get back. It's like a woman or a man who's being abused by the opposite sex. He beats her. He curses her out. She beats him. She curses him out week in, week out. And he gets away from her, and he's doing well. We see him. We say, man, you're doing well. And we acknowledge that he is doing great. But he goes back to her after so long. Yeah, he goes back to her. This is what we have done, because in his heart, he doesn't want to go back to her. But because he's weak, he goes back to her, and she continues to beat his you-know-what and like that. This is the type of person that we're dealing with, Chazz. Do you see that? I said I was going to stay down, so let me stay down.
Hey, you crazy, man. It's Sister Barbara comment. She says, no deposit, no withdrawal. If we put nothing positive into the mind, we have nothing to work with / draw from. Love this broadcast. We appreciate that comment, but she's right. They say, I'll read this comment too, Sister Michonne. This is good teaching. We appreciate that. But it's like Sister Barbara just commented. She said, if you put nothing in there, you get nothing out of it. So it's important to try to apply yourself with something new, something important that's going to grow you mentally, because just sitting back hoping that you're going to just magically become smarter and wiser, it's not going to happen. You have to put something good in there.
Now, I'm going to give you a contrast. A contrast. I can't speak for all sisters. Neither can I speak for all brothers. So whoever's listening to this, don't you take my words and misconstrue them. Don't you take my words out of context.
Okay.
I'm looking at some of our sisters. I'm looking at some of our brothers. Okay. Some of our sisters, they have to run to something. Whether it's religion. No, they do. Whether it's religion, whether it's a man, or whether it's something, they have to get something. This is the mindset that has been created for us by the United States of America, our culture, our system, the way we live in. This has done this to us. And that's not bad. It's just how we are. And some of us brothers, we want to run as far away from everything as we can. We want to go to a hill where there's no one there and sit around and, just do nothing. So here's the contrast. Many of us want to run to things that we shouldn't, and then many of us want to run away from things that we shouldn't. And instead of having a balance, instead of listening to people practical like you and I, they rather go to a building with the stained glass windows, with a steeple, with a cross, with a crescent. And again, I'm not knocking anybody into that, because that's a beautiful thing if it is done correctly. But I'm telling you now, it's not done correctly, because we all get away from what it boils down to, and that's this. Your mind will never grow, and neither will my mind, until we begin to deal with the self. And a lot of that stuff is not helping the self. It's swinging chandeliers. It's talking about waiting for somebody to come and get you out of the trouble you're in. It's always looking for hope. It's not dealing with the issues that we face, and that's why we keep falling on our faces every time we do this.
Absolutely. Number 15, read regularly. This will expand your vocabulary and mental acuity. Now, you said this a few weeks or last week, I believe. You said that we haven't read a book in I don't know how long. Now, brother, I don't read as much books as you, because I know that you have a good book that you're always reading. But we should be reading. It's to help our mental clarity. It is going to help sharpen our vocabulary as well. And if a person doesn't want to read, then it's like, well, I mean, it's just a bad spot to be in, because when you read books, you're going to come across new information. And listen, when I say read, like you told me a long time ago, don't read the new thing about J-Lo. Don't read the new thing about, Lil Wayne or whatever he's doing. Read something that you're not really what you would call into, but something that's going to grow your mind, because anybody could sit back and read books about our favorite superstars and stuff. That's easy to do.
I'm going to tell you what we're reading. I'm going to tell you why we don't read books, because we're too busy reading this. Yeah, that's what we're reading. This is what we're reading right here. This has replaced our consciousness. This is not a bad thing, but it is used badly. See, people think that we're against this. We have one, we use it, we research, we look at it. But I'm trying to say that this is a bad thing that is used by most of us because we don't know how to use it. It's like a loaded gun. You would never give a kid a loaded gun. And we know that that's something that we can't even imagine. But how many of us adults have this thing and it has practically destroyed us? We don't talk to one another anymore. We don't communicate, as I just said, with one another anymore. We don't have any kind of compassion. We're so standoffish. We're so selfish. All we want is this bottle. And this is not a beer bottle. This is not a liquor bottle. This, my friends, is the bottle that most of us are struggling with, that we don't know what to do with. So this is why the mind will not grow. And this is why our children struggle the way they struggle. I have a comment to make, or to let us read, and then I want you to read next week's subject.
Okay.
The comment is here.
Sister Johnson comments, she says, growing the mind is a beautiful thing. And I just want to say, if we see each other as brothers and sisters growing, even trying to correct me if I'm wrong, but there should be more praise and love amongst each other. Absolutely. And I'm going to take her comment a step farther. If you see that a brother or sister, as she wrote, needs correction, don't do it in front of others. Quit trying to show the next man up. If you see a brother or sister, like she said, that needs help, call her privately. Pull her or him in another room privately and tell them what's going on. But the problem is, brother, you know where I'm going with this. We correct them, and for the others start snickering, and then that person kind of looks at us as being a troublemaker, because it's like, you didn't need to expose my business like that in front of these three people. Why couldn't you help me in a more private way? But she's absolutely right. And then also encouraging as well is a good thing we should be doing as well.
Yeah, and I want to say that this sister here, this is a family member of mine. This is a beautiful queen. She's come a long way, man. She's come a long way. And I'm not even trying to put nobody's business out there, but what I do want to say is encouragement. She's come from so far, you wouldn't know that this is the same person that she used to be, because the mind is growing. Now, I didn't say she's perfect, but she's on that path of recovery. She's on that path of putting the pain behind her. She's on that path of doing the things that's going to help people. She's on that path to try to do the best for herself and her children. So this is what it's all about. When you watch a broadcast like this, when you watch a broadcast seriously every Wednesday at 6 o'clock, you're going to learn that in life, we all are in the same boat. I'm not better than you. You're not better than me. That's why I don't believe in these places, some of them, where these people get on these high horses and they talk down to us, but they're struggling just like us. So we got to look within our hearts and bring out that spiritual nature that's there. And that way we can be the best people that we can be. And that's what I'm saying. This is a wonderful discussion we're having, Chazz. But check this out, though.
For next week's subject, for you guys, hopefully you come back in next week. Next week's subject is going to be about suicide and the African-American young and youth. And I just want to say this real quick, brother. And you showed us a video a lot on this show. There was some gentlemen sitting around at the table, African-American men. This man said that he dealt with more deaths from children, brother. Children. That he had dealt with over decades. Now, I'm paraphrasing here, but the point is, this brother was basically saying he had been burying kids left and right. And these are African Americans that he was doing this to. And this was at a high rate that was at a skyrocket. So I hope you guys tune in next week for that.
Please do, because, on next week, we're going to give out some statistics. We're going to give out some data to show that at one time, suicide amongst the African American young man and young woman and adult, it was low. Now, suicide and outgrown other races, and that's because there's some things going on with us. And we have to be willing to talk about this as men and women. I don't want any of my loved ones to even think about this, but we have to be men and talk about this to show that our kids are giving up on themselves. And there are reasons for that. There are reasons for that. Some of the reasons is because people like me, if I don't make time for them, they're going to get into things that's going to eventually lead them down that way. And we're talking about young children. And so you're going to see some statistics next week. This is why this broadcast should be watched. Not because of you and not because of me, but because the information, man. If we love information and we want to grow, we would tune in. But a lot of a lot of people, we don't want to do this, man. We don't want to do this, Chazz. Well, I definitely want to say this. I want to say, if you can, ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow, if you can watch the broadcast, I'm going to put it up now and I'll talk. You'll hear me. Tomorrow on the Jahi and Kev show, it's a brother and I. We're going to come on tomorrow. We normally come on every first and third Saturday. Kevin Lewis and myself, we're going to be doing a broadcast on the political dilemma. We're going to talk about politics, the Democratic Party and the Republican Party as it relates to African Americans. We'd love for you to tune in tomorrow, but that's on YouTube. So please go to the YouTube channel, the Jahi and the Kev show, because we definitely want you to know that tomorrow I'm doing a back-to-back, Chazz. I got one today.
Oh boy!
And tomorrow night I got one with Brother Kevin. So we have to begin to inform our people. If we don't do it, no one else will. And I'm not talking about in a building singing a person happy and swinging from the chandeliers. I'm talking about knuckling up, as they say now, them young boys, knuckling up, getting down to the nitty-gritty, talking about the things that we need to know so we can teach our babies and our grandkids how to grow their mind, because their minds are gone, and we can make it practical. We can make it practical. So
brother,
I have words to say.
I just want to say real quick about that subject next week. I can tell from right now that's going to be a heavy subject. So I'm hoping that people do tune in next week and listen to that. But as far as for tonight's subject, what's an important topic? It's about how to grow our mind. Practical ways on how we can grow our mind. Putting away certain items such as there's nothing wrong with our phones. Get off of them so much. And learn how to do other things such as research, reading, getting out in nature. There's all kind of ways that we can do to grow our mind, and quit thinking that everything is going to be done overnight. When you see some problem that hasn't been solved, wait a little bit, keep plucking away at it, but don't just throw in the towel. And that's pretty much all I had to say. I'm really enjoyed this show as always, brother, and I'll go ahead and pass it to you.
Okay, on behalf of Chazz, I'm your big brother Jahi. He's right about how to grow your mind. And the reason we did this broadcast is because we know that many of our minds are in limbo. And it's okay, because that's life. But this broadcast is to help you get that mind back to where it should be, because there's always help. There's ancestors who left videos. If you love your social media so much, John Henry Clark, Dr. E. Wilson, all these people, Marimba Ani, all these people left videos for us to watch, and they're talking deeper than Chazz and I, and they're teaching us, but we don't want to watch them. These people are going on, and yet they left these videos for us to watch, but yet we rather watch these jokers on social media, a lot of them, and they're not talking about anything. So again, on behalf of Chazz, we love all of y'all. Please put this on your calendar every Wednesday at 6 o'clock, whether we have one person or a million. We're going to talk as if this is our last time we're going to have this meeting, because our people are in a crisis, and you can't get it by running to religion. You can't get it by running to every place else, but you can get it, brothers and sisters, by looking deep within yourself, because that's where the answer is. And until we get into that, that's what it's all about. A beautiful queen says, Shalem Hotel, which means she wants us to go in peace. That's the hieroglyphics word, the African, the ancient Egyptian word. That means go in peace. That's like somebody said, go in peace. But this kind of peace is a beautiful peace. It's a peace that she wants you to know, she wants you to have for your family, for your mind, for your life. So that's why sometimes you hear us say Shem Hotel. It's really Shem M Hotel, but we cut it down. But African Americans, we always simplify things. We say Shem Hotel. And so that's what we say to her, Shem Hotel as well. But yeah, Chazz, it's always great to do these broadcasts with you. I just wish that more people would just take their lives serious and look at the practical things that we are saying to help their minds grow. Because our minds, man, a lot of our minds, we're messed up, man. But we want to get it right. We're giving you the antidote. We're not just telling you the problems. We always give you the antidote. So again, on next week, 6 o'clock, we're going to start at 6. Please come in, get you a pencil, a piece of paper, a notepad, and we're going to show you some statistics on what is happening to our babies. And if you don't have a heart enough to watch that, something is wrong with us. If I don't have a heart to watch that. So again, we're going to get out of here. And again, this is on behalf of Chazz. I can't say it anymore. I wore it out. We'll see you guys all next week. Chazz, take care of yourself, man.
All right. Good seeing you, brother. I appreciate doing the show with you as always.
All right. Peace.
Take care, everybody.